Hey, we're so glad that you could join us here on our podcast at Ashland Christian Fellowship. You will notice different voices from gifted men and women as we discuss relevant and encouraging topics. And don't forget to subscribe either to our YouTube channel or Spotify. We hope you enjoy today's topic and that the Lord speaks to you. God bless.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to Verified. We are super excited you are joining us today as we continue our talk on the new vision the Lord has been giving us as a church. I'm here again with Pastor Mark and Heather Timmons.
Yep. So glad to be here.
Yeah.
So glad to be
good.
here.
Yep.
And so actually, it's not our last podcast. 2 podcasts ago, we talked about being saved.
That's
and
right.
Boy, that was so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Talking about what does it look like to be saved if you aren't saved, and then talking about what does it look like to relationally evangelize people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
And then last week we did a live podcast where people could answer questions and talk to us about our transition in person. And man, what a cool thing that we can do that.
Yep.
So this week we are talking about being surrounded and being an authentic Christian community. And what does that look like? And why is it even important in the first place?
Is that a
Right.
question?
Yeah, it's kind of my job. I get to ask the questions around here. I didn't bring any answers.
Well, I want to jump in and say God is a relational God, and
Yeah.
the way He
Amen.
designed humans was to be in relationship with Him and with each other. And that's before sin, by the way.
Yeah.
When He
Yeah.
placed Adam in the garden, He said it's not good for man to be alone. Some would
Yeah.
say, well, that's all about marriage, but I believe it's all about the way He designed humans. He designed humans for fellowship, for connection, for community.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
Him and with each other. And then Satan messed it up, but that's been God's intent all along.
And we
Yeah.
don't want to get like preachy on you, but
Why
even
not?
if you go to the Trinity itself,
Right.
in
Yeah,
there you go.
theology,
Right.
you know that God
Yeah.
is in community
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He likes Himself.
He likes Himself
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
in a powerful way.
Well, I like the way I heard one guy say it. You know, Jesus was always talking about the Father. And the Father was always saying, you know, there's my beloved Son. And the Holy Spirit's always building up Jesus. And so,
Yeah.
they're, you know, all 3 parts of the Godhead are just all about each other. And so,
Yeah.
perfect fellowship amongst themselves. And I believe that's what He's designed us for, is to move into community and learn, you know, how to be in community with each other.
Yeah, because you have the Father who calls people to His Son. You have the Son, who's the express image of the Father, who also gives people the Spirit.
Yep.
You have the Spirit, who's the presence of Jesus and does the will of the Father and points them to Jesus so that
Yeah.
Jesus can point them in turn to the Father.
Yep. I like
Yeah.
it. We
So-
can talk about that if you want.
We can talk about that all day. So you have God in His triune form is in community.
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, that's actually so powerful because some people say that the reason God made man was because He was lonely, but that's just not true.
No.
Right.
God is
Right.
totally complete in Himself.
Yeah.
Now, what's unique about you and I is we're not totally complete in ourselves. That's where we're different. We are made in the image of
Yep.
God, but we're made to be in relationship with man and with God
Yeah.
in this kind of perfect harmony. Now, you already said that sin broke that,
Yep.
Yeah.
but we get to walk in a restored, redeemed version of that as the church, and ultimately that's what's going to get back to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the middle letter of sin is I, and I think that's one of the biggest problems of community. The hindrance of community is the big I. It's all about me. It's all about what I want, it's what I
Yep.
need, what I think, what I believe, and it easily devolves into this super independent spirit that I don't need anybody. I can walk alone and be just fine. And I think our culture kind of feeds that. So it's really important that we talk about being surrounded as Christians. I think it's God's
Yeah.
will from start to finish. It's not easy. I think it is sometimes easier to be alone. Christians are kind of like porcupines. The closer we get, the more we poke. But without that, we don't grow. Without that, we can talk about all those benefits.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
You know, Chris actually was saying that analogy today. Chris, you guys know Chris, he's been on the podcast, but he added more to it. And he said, people are like porcupines and we're all in a cardboard box together.
Oh, wow.
And that's what he said. He said, then every so often the world comes by and shakes the box.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
That's a good way to.
Yeah.
That's
I was
really
like,
true.
oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shoves us together, and it's not pretty.
It's not
sometimes.
pretty.
Not
Yeah.
pretty, no.
So Heather, talk to me about community, relationship, the need for relationship. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a difficulty. I mean, thinking of the porcupines, I mean, that's what we do to one another. We kind of poke one another. We step on each other's toes, and yet we need each other.
Yep.
So it's really hard to need something that rubs against me the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what community does. And like you said, it can sharpen me.
Yep.
It can sharpen us, make us better,
Yep.
help us face the things within us that are weaknesses, but it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I think that's a beautiful point that you brought up. Community isn't, it's kind of twofold. Like, you need it and
Yeah.
they need it.
Yeah.
Like, I need what I get from you,
Yeah.
but they also need what they get from you per se
Right.
as well.
Right.
There's a
Right.
mutual give and take, unless you have like a really unhealthy kind of community and relationship. And that's for a
Yeah.
different podcast.
Well,
Yeah.
but it has a little element of it because communities can become codependent
Yes.
and dysfunctional, just like families can.
Yes.
And sadly, sometimes people do come to community with it's all about me. You're here to serve me. You need to help me. You need to take care
Yeah.
of me. You need to pour into me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if that becomes if it is all about me, even in the community, it tears the group apart.
Yeah.
Right.
So it has to be both. We have to come to give and
Yes.
to receive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going back to the Bible then, what does that ideal, biblical, genuine kind of community look like? Obviously, we would all say, go back to the garden, look at Adam and Eve.
Right.
But that was in a time of perfection. It's no longer a time of perfection.
Yeah.
We have the Spirit of God. He's working in us, but we're broken, sinful people covered in like quills. I love what
Yeah.
you said, like porcupines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what text would you look at, Mark? What would you kind of pull out of the scripture?
Well, I'd do too. I'd go to the end of Ephesians where it talks about being kind to one another, tender-hearted,
Oh, I love that
forgiving.
one.
Because
Yeah.
really, if my
So
heart
good.
gets hard towards you, I can't receive from you, nor do I want to give to you.
Right.
And so when Paul was telling the church there, don't let the enemy get in. He said, we're not ignorant of his devices. The enemy comes in, and we need to fight against that by staying tender-hearted, by staying kind to one another, forgiving one another.
Yes.
And then he gives us the model, even like Jesus forgives you. So in community, there has to be a free flow of grace and forgiveness to one another, or
Yeah.
it's never going to work. Same in the home, but especially in the small groups or in the house churches, or
Right.
even in the church at large. If there isn't a real spirit of tenderness and loving one another in spite. In fact, what does it say in Colossians? That we're to put up with or forbear,
Right.
bear with one another.
Yeah.
That just means sometimes you just got to flat put up with people
Right.
because
Right.
they're hard to put up with.
Absolutely.
Everybody except me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we feel, right?
Yeah, well, everybody likes to hang around me.
Right.
I thought I'd actually read that verse. I love this verse so much. I'm so glad you
Good.
brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ephesians 4:32. It says, actually, let's go back to 4:31. Let's take it back to 4:30. This is a
There
great
you go.
passage. We'll try not to preach. It says, and do not grieve the Holy Spirit of
There you
God,
go.
by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. The Spirit of God that lives inside of his children sealed them. Let all bitterness, wrath,
There you go.
anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with
Yeah.
all malice. So it's all got to go. And
Yeah.
here it is. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted. And I love this part. Forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave
There you go.
Right.
So at the core, then, I guess you could say, of our reason to have authentic communication, authentic community, and genuine relationship is actually the forgiveness of Christ.
Yeah.
Because we are broken.
Yeah.
And we do wound one another.
Yeah, we do.
But at the center of why we're together is because Christ has forgiven us, and we're to walk that out with one another
Right.
in close community.
Right.
Yeah.
And the one thing we have in common, in fact, sometimes it can be the only thing we have in common, is Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We love him, he loves us, but because we are loved and forgiven by him, I can be with people that I don't even like,
Right.
but I love them in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes Christian community so powerful.
It does.
Is the fact that there's a group of people who in no other circumstances would be in each other's lives, right?
Right.
But then you walk into the doors of the church and you've got just such a variety of people, hopefully, right? Different political views,
Pretty
different,
diverse.
Yeah, different places in, I don't know, where you live. Like you live in different neighborhoods, there's so many diverse things that what would bind everyone together, and it's Jesus.
Jesus.
Well, I feel like if you have Jesus at the center of that community, you have more in common than you don't.
Right.
Because we think like, oh, well, the only thing we have in common is Jesus. But then Paul makes the argument. He's like, don't you have one Spirit, one baptism,
Yeah.
one calling, one
right.
Savior,
That's
one
right.
Lord? I mean, like
That's
all
right.
the things that we actually have in Jesus that are eternal so many of these other things we have are not eternal,
Yeah.
but we have in Jesus is eternal, and that we can share together.
Right.
Yeah.
You asked me what text I would use to support, the idea of being in community. And one of the ones I think is when Jesus said in John 16 that by this men shall know that you're my disciples.
Yeah.
Is that John 16 or John 13? By the love that you have for one another.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't have love for your brothers who you do see, First John would tell us, then how can you say you love God whom you haven't seen? So I think it's
You say
really,
you're a liar.
It's the test of our fellowship. It's the test of our vertical fellowship
Yep.
by how we act in a horizontal relationship.
Yeah. So we can all agree that God has designed man for relationship.
Yep.
Yes.
And now it's just a matter of why is that necessary? What does it do for me? What does it do for
Yeah.
others? And what's the consequence of not being in that?
Right.
That's really
Yeah.
what we need to talk about today in this podcast. Right off the bat, one of my favorite ones that probably everyone thinks of is iron sharpens iron. So the countenance of a friend sharpens his friend. And that's great. And people always quote that one like, hey, man, it's iron sharpening iron. And then I said it in one of our sermons, I'm like, but do you know what it sounds like when iron sharpens iron?
Yeah. It's
Right.
Oh, screeching and
Sparks
sparks
and
and metal chunks going everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
You and I
Yeah.
being in close community, we sharpen one another. We help one another grow. And so that's one of the necessary things I put out right away for being in a community like this.
Yeah. Well, you touched on something
Yeah.
I've heard Brett talk about. Pastor Brett, you still with us?
I'm here, guys.
Awesome. Something about
fourth
this
man.
growing, yeah, he's not on the camera, but he's the guy behind all making all
I'm
this
here.
work.
Yeah.
But talk to us a little bit about what does small groups and community do for our discipleship? How can we, the good and the bad of how it helps and how it hinders if we don't?
Well, I mean, I think that you guys are. Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah, we're good.
I think you guys are hitting it right on the head because ultimately you're going to have a big group of people that are different, right?
Yep.
And so immediately when you were talking about that, it reminded me of the disciples.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh,
all
boy,
of
were they
them
different.
Were so different.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there were a few fishermen, so they probably had some things in common, but you have a tax collector and Simon the Zealot, and you just have
Yeah.
all these different people,
Yep.
and they come together, and ultimately Jesus is what really brings them
Yeah.
to a place
Absolutely.
of being of one accord and one flesh.
Yep.
And I think that when you step into a place of small groups or house churches, you have to understand that, okay, I will be different than other people, but that's okay because God is good and he wants us to be of one accord, of one mind. You know, it reminds me of Philippians chapter 2, if you have all things together, like of being of one, how does it go?
Yeah.
One accord of one mind,
Mhm.
having the same mind of Christ, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, right?
Yeah.
So I think that verse really shows when you're in discipleship of like, this person may be a lot different than me,
Yeah.
but God is able to show us the things that we really have in common
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
his spirit.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is like, if you're hesitant about being a part of a house church or hesitant about being in a small group of any kind, a big reason for that is because you might want to hide.
Yeah.
Right.
You may not want to
Right.
like open up about your life
Yep.
because you think other people might judge you. Another reason is you think you're too cool or better than other people. You have it all together.
Yeah, I don't want to be with those losers.
Exactly. But I think part of discipleship is the realization that we all need it. Whether
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
young or whether you're old, we all need to be discipled, and to sharpen each other, as you guys were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an excellent point.
I love that, Brett.
Me too.
What I love about it is, genuinely, I think that is the hard issue at authentic community for some people is not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to be accountable, because it
Yeah.
is hard. It's hard to open up and let other people
Well,
in.
let's be frank.
Yeah.
I've been around long enough to tell you why that happens.
Yeah.
People,
Yes.
once you share something and it gets out there, people can react to that. And there
Yes.
can be judgment and there can be
Yes.
criticism and there can be gossip where people
Yes.
go around and talk. But the thing is, that's what needs to be confronted. And so we help make that community a safe community.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we work through those issues and we work through until we've developed a trust with one another that
Yeah.
this group, I can go deep with this group because they're authentic, because they're real. You keep saying, Pastor Cody, I hear you all the time saying that we at ACF believe that God's called us to walk in authentic relationship with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you take that word authentic out, man, you can just turn it into a social club.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to join the PTA or join the Elks Club or whatever. But when
Right.
authentic relationship means I'm real, you're real, and we come together around Jesus. So I love
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
think it's needed. It's desperately needed.
Well, and
Yeah.
before you feel like, yeah, but I've been betrayed by my small group, I just want to let you know, Jesus knows what that
Yeah.
was
He
like.
does.
He does.
Jesus' small
He
group
does.
had a zealot, a tax collector, and the son of
Yeah.
perdition. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And when he
Yeah.
told him he was the son of God, what did he do? He betrayed him.
Yeah.
It saw him killed. And so that didn't stop Jesus from loving, though. It didn't stop
Right.
Jesus from being in a genuine relationship with these guys.
No.
In fact,
Yeah.
at the end, Jesus still looked him in the eyes and called him friend.
Called him friend.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. That's a totally
Yeah.
different podcast and sermon, but
Yeah.
so convicting.
It is. Yeah.
No, but Jesus was really vulnerable because
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I want to guard my heart at times. I don't want to put
Well,
it out
sure.
there
No, me either.
and have it be, gossiped
trampled
about
on,
Or
yeah.
judged. Jesus
or
was constantly
judged.
criticized and judged.
Right. And yet he broke bread and lived life authentically before Judas,
Yeah.
knowing that he was going to be
Yeah.
betrayed. And so,
Knowing Peter would bail on him.
yeah. But
Wow.
Peter came back. I mean,
Jesus went and got him.
right. Right. But Judas never did come back.
No.
Judas only had ill intent, and yet Jesus was vulnerable and transparent and offered his teaching and his life to be lived in front of him. And that is
Yep.
so humbling to me because
too.
I don't want to risk that big.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's right on, Heather. We feel like I don't want to risk that big. I love it that you said that because I think honestly that's what's going through everyone's mind. I don't want to be in a genuine community.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in an authentic relationship because I've been hurt, because I've been betrayed, and I don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think that holds us back from the benefits
Yeah.
that come from when this is done right and there are godly,
Yeah.
mature people you're walking in relationship with. I know I got some close friends and brothers that I'm very close to and can be very vulnerable with.
Yeah.
And it has promoted so much growth and
Yeah.
health and
And
wisdom
I would
and
agree.
spirituality. Like even my relationship with the Lord has
Yeah.
done better
Yeah.
Yes.
because of it.
Yes.
But that came with taking the risk of,
Yep.
all right, a calculated risk. I think I
Yeah.
trust these people. I know them well enough. I'm going to be honest with them. And I've gotten to reap the fruits of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've grown in this. When I started out, I was really too transparent with almost everybody. I learned this little
Yeah.
slogan. Somebody gave it to me. It says, be authentic with all, transparent with most, and intimate with few. I think there's
That's
wisdom
good.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Authentic means I'm real with everybody, but I don't need to give everybody all the details.
Yeah.
No.
But when
Yeah.
I'm in community, if I don't, I think it was you, one of our podcasts talked about, I brought up, but you finished it for me, where if we take our heart and we guard it, it's going to grow cold.
Yeah.
I think it was
Yeah.
Chuck Swindoll or something that's talked about, if I guard my heart because it's been wounded,
Yeah.
I'm not doing myself any favor because in that darkness, it's going to shrivel, it's going to shrink,
Yep.
and it's going to
Yeah.
get hard. But in community, even though we do get hurt from time to time,
Yep.
that's when our hearts can swell and can grow, and we can really
Yes.
see God in a new light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it takes risk. I mean,
it really does.
sometimes we choose to open up with people, and some of those people stick around and walk through a lot of life with us.
Yep.
Some of them only walk through a small season of life with us, and sometimes when they leave, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like
Yeah.
we wasted our vulnerability, but maybe that relationship was only meant for a season, or maybe they just, had other things going on. They're like, I'm not sure that I want to commit to you, and
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah,
relationships
sometimes they
that I've
just
moved
walk
on
out
from.
Yeah.
when you tell
Right.
them you have problems.
Right.
It makes me think
Right.
about a few relationships I've had too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you're
Yeah.
left with at the end of that are those people who really are committed.
Yeah.
And you don't really need that many of them. I used to
No.
think I wanted a lot of friends because I was very social. But you even look at Jesus's model. He had John, and then he had Peter. He had his closest, and then out from there, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't equally close to everybody. And honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I can't sustain too many super close relationships. I don't have the capacity myself to be that quality of a friend to too many people.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to. Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on in, Brett.
We didn't
touch.
ask you to speak right now. That's
Always wisdom when Brett speaks.
Yes.
I wanted to say too, have you guys ever been in a group setting where you've gone in and you've really poured out your heart and you were honest and vulnerable and no one else was.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just like
Yeah.
you're the
The
only
worst.
one.
Yep.
and
Yeah,
you feel
like you're
they
hanging
passed
out there,
by you.
man.
Yeah.
That's a
I've been there
big
multiple
reason.
times.
Yeah.
Me too.
Crickets.
And I feel like that's a big reason why people don't go back, because
Yeah.
they go to these groups and they're
Yeah.
like, wow, everyone has it all put together spiritually.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that doesn't.
Yeah.
And
That's
first
a
of all,
great
that,
point.
First of all, that stinks.
Yes.
You know?
But it's
But
not true either.
But it's not true
Yeah.
also.
Right.
And you have to remember that as a house church or a small group or discipleship group or whatever, that vulnerability of the whole group or even one-on-one even, that takes time to
Yes. Yeah.
see. It's not always just going to spark up right away. And so I think just take heart. I know
Yeah.
that I myself have been in places of dry seasons, and I go to these groups and I'm like, man, they're all so passionate about the Lord, and here
What's
I
the matter
am
with
feeling,
me?
Yeah.
feeling like that
Yeah.
God's not even speaking to me, so I don't want to go there and bring the whole group down.
Yeah.
But the whole point is like we go there because
Yeah.
we need to get filled, we need to be encouraged,
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
to be poured into, and so the
Yeah.
natural response is, oh, I'm going to hide in my house and eat chips and watch Netflix all the time, but we're not going to grow at all. In fact, we're going to
Yeah.
be backsliding. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Hey,
a dangerous place.
And
I
maybe
do
your
too.
house church,
Yeah.
you know, you guys eat chips and watch Netflix together. And if you're together, that's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah, as long as you're
It is fine,
surrounded.
As long as
Actually,
you're together.
yeah.
My house
Right.
church, I mean, we get together and we've done Mandalorian nights, things like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Chips.
Those are really good things, though.
I think so. It builds relationships.
It
Doing life
does.
together.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to put out there a couple things off the top, I would say
Yeah.
is one, somebody's always got to be the pioneer. Someone's always got to break the ice in any group.
Yeah.
If you just joined a house church or you just started one, and by the way, if you're not involved in a house church, we here at
Oh,
ACF believe
man.
that God has called us
Yep.
to be surrounded. It's why we're talking about today.
Yep.
And house churches is kind of our mainstay. It's what we are
Yeah.
really pushing to people because it's an opportunity for your whole family to be plugged into
Yeah.
community
Right.
with other people and do life together.
Right. And let me just say, it's not a gimmick. It's not like a
Right.
methodology
Right.
that somehow benefits the church. We just believe it's the heart of Jesus, and our elders have really sensed it, and we're just reaffirming what the Bible has always said.
Right.
Is that Christian community is where we grow.
Yeah.
It's where God reveals himself, and the Old Testament would say that's where God commanded a blessing, is where the brethren dwell together in unity.
Well,
so we need each other.
We need each other, and it does
Yeah.
benefit the church because you and I are the church,
well,
not
that's what
the
I mean.
establishment.
Spiritually, we grow.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
we
about
grow
a
as a
numerical.
church
Yeah.
individually when we're
Yeah.
in community with one another.
Yeah.
But someone's got to break
Right.
the ice,
Yeah.
and if maybe God's made you the pioneering spirit and you
That's
have the
right.
faith to do it, maybe you're not that person, and that's okay. Don't let that stop you though from being a part of a group, waiting for the pioneer to say something,
Right,
and
absolutely.
then jump in with it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
And I get that because God gives us all different personalities.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like the awkward personality. I had some friends tell me, they're like, why did you say that? We were at the store and this guy was serving me food. And this is a story. And he clearly was unhappy about the questions I was asking about the food. And you can tell he was visibly upset about it. I'm with my friends, and they're a little bit quieter and proper. And so I just stopped the guy and I said, man, you must hate it when customers like me come in and ask you all these questions, huh? Like not in a
Right.
defensive way, like
Right.
genuine way. And then he just turned and looked at me. He's like, you know what? I actually just hate this job. And we had this
Oh,
great
wow.
out in the air moment.
Oh,
Wow.
My friends almost died. Later, they were
Yeah.
like, why did you say that? And I was like, why not? That's my
Right.
personality. I'm like, obviously he's not happy. I can tell I'm bothering him. Let's just talk about it.
Right.
So maybe you don't have that personality. Maybe you're like my friends and you would die, you
Yeah.
know, if you heard them. But you know what? They go to my house church
Yeah.
There you go.
and they talk after we've all talked. So
Yeah.
yeah.
that can be you. You can go to the house
Yeah.
church. Wait for the people who speak too much to speak and then jump in behind them.
Yeah.
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 You know, there was a Barna research poll done some years ago. Back in the late 90s, there was a real departure from the church by lots and lots of evangelicals. Well, recently there's been another departure with the millennials where they just kind of just bailed on church. They don't want to be a part of
Yeah.
it. And if you really press in as to what it is that made a millennial pull away from church, it's they're looking for authentic relationship.
Yeah.
Not some denominational program, not a big personality, not the big fancy worship, but relational integrity,
Yeah.
doing life together. And when we get back to the basics, that's what God always intended,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
for us to do life together on a very real basis and not make it all, about glitz and glamour or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not smoke and mirrors. This is reality.
Yeah.
Well, because this is what the Bible says about it, and I love this one when it comes to community. It says, if we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. That's what Mark said earlier.
Yeah.
But if we walk in the light, which is the idea of in community,
Yeah.
authentically,
Yeah.
honestly, vulnerably, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, check it out, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from all sin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that verse.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, and oftentimes authentic community, I like how you said without the glitz.
Yep.
Because authentic community, it's not always exciting.
No.
It's oftentimes the rolling in at the end of a day and just being real with one another week after week after week.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, which means sometimes we're going to have a high day and it's going to be great. We're going to have something
Yeah.
exciting. But a lot of times it's just the mundane and the normal.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to adjust our own expectations to realize that if I go to my house church and it's not as exciting as I want some week or for several weeks, that's just life.
It is.
If it doesn't make me feel the way I want to feel, that's just life. But God does something in the faithful gathering of his children.
I
He
totally
works
agree.
in the midst of
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
But I would encourage you, if you are in a house church and you just don't feel like it's the kind of group you could be honest with, that's okay.
Right.
I think, you know,
Yes.
you need to look for a group where you do feel comfortable.
Well, I was going to say, are you
Yes.
mening that they are free to find another
I
one?
think so.
I
Yeah.
do
You
too.
know what?
Glad
And I
you-
think
I'm
that's
glad
one of
you
the
brought it
reasons
up.
people get
Yes.
afraid to get into these
Yeah.
groups is like, if I get in, I
I'm
can't
stuck.
change. I'm
You're
stuck.
stuck.
Yeah.
It's not that way. My wife and I have been a part
Yes.
of multiple house churches. The one we have right now, we're like, this feels like home to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been in house churches on and off for years.
Yeah.
And I think you just need to find the one that you can be honest with, the kind of people you can connect with
Yeah,
and
I
do
totally-
life with and
totally
who care
agree.
about you.
Yeah.
And then go deep with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought of something. I heard this, and I don't know that it's a fact, but as the Apostle John got older, he just kind of developed a one message to the church.
heard that too.
Have you heard that? In fact, I
Yeah.
heard somebody say that his sermon at the very end, one of the last sermons he ever delivered, was only 2 words, Greek word, which is 2 words, but in our language we'd have to say 3.
Yeah.
Love one another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what it was all about. He just wanted the body of Christ to love each other,
Yes.
just love each other, just love each other, because he knew
Yes.
that what Jesus had said is this is where I'm going to give the
Yeah.
blessing to the whole nation and the world through you guys, and you need each
Yeah.
other. We got to have it.
Yeah.
We're not going to see people
Yeah.
get saved if they're just going to be like, illegitimate children all over the place. Without a nursery, those new believers don't have a way to grow up. They need
Yeah.
the body of Christ.
Well,
Yeah.
and Chuck Smith, I think, would jump on John's message right there.
Mm-hmm.
And he always said that the fruit of the Spirit is love.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what he would say. You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he would say all these other things, the joy, patience, kindness.
They flow out from
It
that.
flows out of love, but the fruit of the Spirit
Absolutely.
is love.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes authentic community so amazing is we get to love one another, which means we get to develop the fruits of the Spirit towards one another in
Yep.
our own
Yeah.
lives, experience it communally. And then also I believe the Spirit of God gets to stir up our spiritual gifts
Yeah.
Yes.
in those groups, and we get to minister to one
Yes.
another and do ministry
Yes.
together. And man, that's powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And
Yeah.
we can become aware of the needs in the lives of one another and in our own hearts
Yeah.
as we pray through it or as we realize, oh, there's actually something practical we can do for someone. And I think that's a really, really beautiful part of that fellowship and that community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that reputation spreads. Neighbors
Yep.
hear about that. They see
Yep.
that because, it's one thing to say I love you. It's another one to do I love you.
Yes.
And in Christian
Yes.
community, it becomes kind of natural. People used to say, well, how come the church doesn't do this and the church doesn't do that?
Yeah.
In my opinion, when you get a family in a small group, it happens organically.
Yeah.
If you're sick, somebody brings meals over. If you need
Yep.
a ride to the doctor, somebody in your small group picks it up. If
Yep.
you're struggling with something in your in your whatever marriage, you need somebody to talk to. There's somebody right there.
Yep.
So the church doesn't have to organize it. It just happens organically. What a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Right. Yeah.
So you need to get in a house church.
Yes.
You need to get in a house church. Here's another thing I would say. Some of us are scared to serve alone. And I get
Yeah.
that. I'm incredibly social to evangelize alone. Have you ever felt like, man, if I could just get in with my other Christian friends, or I don't know what to say? Here's what I love about house church and this idea of being surrounded an authentic community. And this goes more than house church. It could be your women's Bible study.
Yeah.
It could be your middle school, high school small group. It could be the college group that Brett's running. But it's that place where you have that kind of community and you can do it together. And you can say, I have an unsaved friend. I don't know how to answer his questions. I don't know how to reach out to him, but I can bring him into my community.
Yeah.
Together, collectively, we can love on him and minister to him.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's powerful.
It is.
Especially in the context of like a house church or actually any of those groups. My house church has gotten a chance to experience that. And it is powerful to collectively love people together.
Yes.
You know, because we all bring something different to the table, and the way I would minister is different than the way they would minister, and together we get to love someone special.
It's like running a relay. You each
It
take a
is.
leg. You each get to tap into the gifts of the other people, whether it's their wisdom and their knowledge or some gift that they have. And it's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
I know there have been times where there's someone in our church who's really gifted at getting people plugged in with other people socially. And there have been times I've met a person and kind of like took them over to that person.
Said, hey.
Yes, and just watch this person use the gifts that God's given them.
Oh,
And it's
that's
just,
cool.
it's beautiful.
That
It's
is
really
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I agree. Together, it's how Jesus designed it.
Yep.
Yep.
We need one another. The
That's right.
church is a living body, a living organism. And together we're doing the ministry of the Lord. There's no real loners in the kingdom of God.
It's
Yeah.
interesting you'd say that. A few years
Yeah.
ago, during our week of prayer and fasting, I kept getting this one word, and that was lonely, lonely, lonely. And so when I addressed it from the pulpit the following January or whatever, man, there were dozens of people who said, I am desperately, chronically lonely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even though
Yeah.
they're sitting in a church with
Wow.
several hundred other believers, they're lonely. And so we addressed it then that God puts the solitary in families,
Yes.
he said.
He does.
He puts us
Yes.
together. But there has to be an effort. I can't remember which proverb it says, but a man that has friends must show himself friendly.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
unless you're reaching out, it's probably not going to happen. Somebody's not naturally going to reach out to you unless
Yeah.
maybe you can initiate it and start a group. I have a buddy that loves to fly fish, and he was talking to me about what would it be okay if we started a fellowship group around fly fishing? And he said, I've got some unsaved Christian buddies who talk about they need friends. And he goes, I'd love to bring them. I go, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it'd be a great way to
Did
have
you
some
say
community.
unsaved Christian buddies?
Did I say that?
Yeah. I was like,
Huh. I'll bet he has some of those too.
religious,
What I
but
meant
not
is
believing. I
unsaved
like it.
fishing buddies.
Soon to be Christian buddies. They're just unsaved
Amen.
buddies right now.
Treat
It
him like
was
a
a mix.
pre-believer.
Hey, you know, I learned that from you, and I actually love it.
Yeah.
Because
I like
here's
that.
what I love about it is it's taught me. This is a side note. Sorry, guys, but it's taught me to stop looking at people's sin, to stop looking at their problems, and look at the real issue, which is Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to start talking to those pre-believer friends and talk to them like they're Christians.
Yeah,
And say,
treat them like a
here in the
pre-believer.
family of
Yeah.
Christ, this is why we believe, this is what we do. And I found that they're way more like, oh, really? Well, maybe I want to come to church then
Wow.
and watch.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I know when they get saved, Jesus is going to deal with their issues.
He is.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's who Jesus is. It's not
Yeah.
up to me to fix their problems.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of the other things Chuck Smith always used to say is you got to catch the fish before you try to clean them.
Yeah.
You know, let's not
that's a good
try
one.
to clean people up. You know, let's just love on them. Let the Lord do His work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's a good
Yeah.
perspective.
Community. We're called community.
Yes.
Community. But I would say this. I
Yes.
think there are some who are just gifted by God with the spiritual gift of hospitality. It's
I do
one of the
too.
spiritual gifts.
I do too.
And I
Yeah.
can think of some people. Like I was just at one of those families' houses for Easter where they just naturally go, we want to gather people to our home, even people
Yeah.
we don't know, and just love on them. If you have that gift, I think pray about starting something in your home, whether that's saying, hey, can I host a women's Bible study
Yeah.
at our
Yeah.
house? Can I host a house church? Can we be an asset for the youth groups to come over and hang out here? Something like that. Use that gift God's given
Yeah.
you, because not everyone has that gift. It's unique. Some of us have different gifts that complement that. But I think if we in the body who have that gifting and passion open
Yeah.
up our homes and let the Lord fill it,
Yep.
because there are people who are saying, I would love to be in a community like that, but I don't have the ability or the knowledge or the gifting to open up my doors and do that.
Yeah.
But would love to join a group of someone who did.
Yeah. Well, the groups that
Yeah.
are really thriving have somebody in that group who is exactly that.
Who's like that.
They make other people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
In their home and other people's homes, but they know how to make people feel comfortable. That's huge.
Yeah, a shout
Yeah.
out actually to our
Huge.
house church hosts. They are amazing, and
That's
every
so
week
awesome.
prepare the main course for the meal, and they just
wow.
want to do it. They voluntarily
Yeah.
want to do it. Everyone brings sides and stuff, but they always want to host. They always want to
Yeah.
feed. They have nice little snacks. They have comfortable couches. They want everyone to sit on and watch it. And you can just tell they get joy out of ministering in this way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a gift to the body. And if
Yep.
God has gifted you with that, man, we would love
Yeah,
for you to use that.
absolutely. Yes, we
Walk in
would.
that gift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
invite me.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Yeah. That's
You
a
heard it
good
here on
point.
the podcast.
You
Invite
did.
Pastor
Yes,
Mark.
you did.
You're going to get like 10 invites now.
That'd be all right.
Yeah.
Heather, what are your thoughts? You have tons of tabs on your Bible. For those of you who don't know, she changes
She
the tabs
always comes
per
ready.
podcast.
I'm
per
telling you.
podcast, she
No.
puts new tabs in her
I know about
Bible
that.
scriptures.
This was for the transitions one that we were talking about doing, the orange ones. So
Oh,
I
nice.
just left them in place. And this is actually for a paper I'm writing. So
Okay.
that's what those are for. But my other thoughts were, I'm in a season of life because of school and other things that are going on where we can get the doors of our home open and people can come in, and that's about it. Usually Mark will set up things for tea and all of that. And it
For
works really
tea?
well. Yeah, we set up stuff for tea.
You guys drink tea
We're
at your
big
house
tea
church?
drinkers.
Read from your
We are.
devotional basket. Drink tea.
We drink tea. But we have another
That's
woman
awesome.
in our church who brings the snack almost every time.
Like tea snacks?
Well, she
Like
brings
biscuits?
like brownies, cookies.
Tea and biscuits.
Tea and biscuits?
You realize that's a
Are you
cookie,
just
right?
distracted by
That
this?
is a
Yeah,
cookie.
it is
That's
a
very
cookie.
British. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
very
watched the
British.
British baking show, you guys. I know that.
Yeah.
I've confessed it many times.
Yeah.
So you said tea, and then instantly I was
I know,
like,
it got very
British.
distracting.
And,
Biscuits, yeah.
Very
Okay, I'm sorry.
distracting. But I love how your house church does a meal. And we've done that in the past in our home. But right now, my capacity is the kids get things cleaned up. We open the doors, people come in, and other people use their gifts to make it more hospitable. So
That's awesome.
Well, I'm glad
There's
you're
a
okay with
continuum.
that because
Yeah.
you know life.
Yeah.
Life is cyclical, and sometimes there's
Right.
seasons, and this is evidently one of those seasons for you.
yeah, this is just a much busier
We're lucky
season.
to have you in this podcast,
Well-
as busy as you are.
We are.
Well,
We are.
But
We'll
I am.
We can start having tea if you
Yeah, oh,
like,
no.
while Brett set up the tea station.
Set up the tea caddy.
I actually love tea. Sorry, now I'm distracted. I actually love tea. It's just way too caffeinated for me.
Mark's
We
got
have
a new
herbal
tea.
tea.
Herbal tea,
Sweet and
black
spicy
tea is the
from
best thing
Safeway. You
ever.
got to try it.
Sweet
No,
and
I'm like
spicy.
I'm
there's
black
no
tea to the
caffeine.
core. Black
Oh,
tea to
are
the
you?
core. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love
Then
black
there
tea.
is more caffeine in it.
There's a lot of caffeine.
probably
in
couldn't
it.
do
It's
that
great,
anymore.
but I love it, man. I love black tea. Mark, so we're talking about this kind of through the scripture. What would some other thoughts be from the Bible as you've been wrestling this through, pondering it? Kind of the need and the necessity for being surrounded.
Well, if you were to take a word search in your Bible search program or a concordance and just look up the one another's in the scripture, you'd be surprised. There's 40 to 50, I can't remember the exact number,
Yeah.
in the New Testament that all with love one another,
Yes.
forgive one another, put up with one another,
Yes.
be kind to one another.
Yeah.
There's no way to be obedient to the Lord in isolation.
Right.
You just can't do it. When the Lord calls us to salvation, He's calling us at the same time to the family of God. And the
Yeah.
family of God's got some dysfunction, but it is also an incredibly important piece of God's plan on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And He wants to use the church to build His kingdom one
Yeah.
family at a time, one church family at a time, one small group at a time.
Yeah.
And when we disobey that and we pull away and we say, well, I'm going to watch TV, I'm going to get my instruction from some guy, virtually, I don't need to be a part of a small group. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you don't to go to heaven, but if you want to go to heaven in an obedient way, you need to be in community.
Yes.
Agreed.
There's a lot of ways to get it. You can get it over Zoom. You can get it over,
Yeah.
virtual meetings, but you gotta put some effort. In my opinion, it's not going to happen automatically.
Yeah.
I agree. And here's another verse. If you're saying, I disagree with you, Pastor Mark, I would say, listen to this verse real quick.
Yeah.
Hebrews 10:23 says,
There you
let
go.
us hold
There you
fast
go.
the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider one another in order to stir up love, there it is, and good works, that's serving together,
Yep.
not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as
Yeah.
is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching, speaking of the return of Christ. Now, a lot of us would take that and just instantly apply to Sunday morning service, but I think it's
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah.
He's
I think
talking
so,
about
too.
being in community where you're stirring one another up.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's not Sunday morning.
No.
You
Right.
come on Sunday morning, you get fed. I love that.
Right.
But that's not the place where you're using your gifts to stir up one another. Maybe
No.
for some
Yeah.
it is, but not
Right.
for all.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you guys to take it a step deeper. I think the Bible, like Mark says, clearly commands
Yeah.
and calls us
I do too.
to walk in genuine Christian community.
Yeah.
Well, my experience would be that some well-meaning pastor has taken Hebrews 10:25 and used it as like a club
Yeah.
to beat people. You got to be in church. You got to be in
Yeah.
church. You got to be in church. What it's saying is you got to be in community. You got to be
Yeah.
in community. You got to be in community. And wherever that happens, it can be a Sunday school class. It could be a small group. It
Yeah.
could be a Bible study. It could be whatever it is. But that's where the Lord is encouraging us to
Yeah.
stir up, to provoke, literally in the Old King James, provoke one another to love and good works.
Yeah.
And it happens just by osmosis. When I'm around somebody who's on fire for the Lord, it elevates. When I'm around somebody who's got a deep need, it gives me the chance to pour out into them what God has poured into me. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
Well, the first and greatest command, love God and
Yeah.
love your neighbor as
And
yourself.
the second, love
right?
Yeah, second is
How do
like
you
it.
love your neighbors yourself? Like you
Yeah.
said, if you're not in community.
Right.
Well, and I don't think we realize, but when we pull ourselves out of genuine community, it actually harms us.
Right.
It does.
And that's the unique piece about
Yeah.
people who pull themselves out because they say, I don't want to be harmed. You're actually doing probably more harm to
Yeah.
yourself than
Yeah.
that community would do to you.
I
if
think
you're
it's
honest with them.
ironic.
Isn't it ironic?
Someone says, okay, I'm in this community and you hurt me, so I'm going to pull away.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hurt myself by doing it. It's
Yeah.
almost like somebody who says, well, I don't like change, so I'm going to change churches. And I go, did you just think through that just a little bit? You don't like change, so
Right.
you're going to change.
Right.
You don't, it's just
Right.
Yeah.
like, what part of this aren't you thinking about?
Right.
We need each other as we do life. And it's not always easy for
Yeah.
crying out loud.
No.
No. And yeah, change is going to come one way or another.
It
right?
is. Yeah, I mean,
Choose your
yeah.
change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And even if we've been wounded and hurt, I know we've talked about that in the past. We've all experienced wounds within the church. So maybe you need to pull away from one little segment, but plug back in somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Find some place to plug in and heal, and don't just write off, I would say, the people who did the wounding.
Well,
Works.
and I want to go one step further because you made
Yeah.
me think about something that we usually, if we get wounded in
Yeah.
community, we're going to get healed in community. Maybe
Yeah.
not the
This is
same
so
community,
true.
Yes.
but whatever it is that
Yes.
because you can't pull away and expect that wound to heal. What it's going to do is just going to get hard and crusty,
Yeah.
and scar tissue is going to build up.
Yeah.
But if you've been wounded, it's just an opportunity for you to find healing in maybe a different environment.
Yeah.
Not an abusive environment, but
Right.
more of a healing environment. But that's still going to be the body of Christ, the family of God.
Yes.
I agree.
Yep.
Yes.
Another thing is it's way easier for a loner to get picked off.
Yes.
There you go.
That's a
There's an
really-
Old Testament
yeah.
example of that.
Old Testament
Yeah.
example of it, but Satan is a
Yep.
master hunter.
He is.
He is.
Just talking to a retired pastor recently, and he was just telling me that, the enemy is a hunter,
Yeah.
a skilled
Yeah.
hunter, and you know when to look for prey that are vulnerable.
Yep.
Yeah.
and
People that are on the edges, people that are
people
in the
on
back.
the edges.
Yeah.
The church is kind of
Yeah.
that herd mentality. We've all
Yep.
seen Nature Channel, Discovery Channel.
Yep.
You all know what happens when the baby gazelle gets separated from his mommy
Yeah.
gazelle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's the one the cheetahs or the lions all start going
Yeah.
after.
Even the music changes. Have you noticed?
Yeah, even the
And
music
you
changes
think-
with it.
You
It's
think
so
that
sad,
animal
I'm
should
feeling
hear that
sad
You
music
think the animal would hear the music and
and
change.
say, "Man, there's something bad about that."
Yeah, but they don't.
They don't.
And it's you even
Sad.
watch full-grown animals, not even just the small ones, get
Yeah.
picked off
Yep.
Yeah.
when they're alone.
Yep.
Yep.
And I love this because it's another one I add is it's easier to fall into sin. That's part of Satan picking you off to fall into sin, get into
Yeah.
sin, and stay in sin.
Yep.
Absolutely.
When you're alone, check out what Paul would say to Timothy about this. Timothy's a young man, young church
Yeah.
leader. He said, "But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work." And we
Yeah.
I'll go, "Yes, Lord, please." Well, then here's Paul's opinion. "Flee also youthful lusts, but
Yep.
pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart."
There
Yeah.
you go.
Not alone.
No.
He said,
With-
"Timothy, you need to run with guys
Yep.
who love the Lord."
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
if you're a brother or sister in Christ, I would say you need to run with guys and gals who love Jesus and are seeking
Yeah.
Jesus. And that's actually going to keep you strong
Yeah.
from the temptation of sin.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and I have an
Yes.
opinion about that, very strong opinion, that part of that is that if you never give out, you only take in, it's gonna, I call it sit, soak, and sour. If you
Yeah.
never give to anybody, you never pray for anybody, you never love on somebody,
Yeah.
you never pursue somebody or forgive somebody or hang out with somebody who's needy, you're just gonna take in, until what you do take in is gonna get polluted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Dead Sea.
Yep.
You always take in, never give out. Nothing's gonna grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta give. We
Yes.
gotta be in community.
That's a really good visual image.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy
Yeah.
Sunday, Easter Sunday, we had a guy in the back that came through with his dog, and he was a homeless guy. And I gave him a hug, and I said, man, I'm so glad to see you. Are you here? And he goes, well, I don't want to stay. People are going to give me a dirty look. And I said, listen, man, you're going to go across the street and get some dirty looks. Why don't you get some dirty looks here?
Right.
And he looked at me like, what? I said, man, we're not going to give you dirty looks.
Yeah.
And he goes, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. And so we kind of just had this thing. But no matter where you go, people are going to disappoint you. I don't
Right.
care which group you join.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a church group. Join any
Right.
group. You're going to find people there,
Yep.
and they're going to disappoint.
Yep.
The point is, don't be disappointed by people enough to get
Yeah.
isolated. You got to
Yeah.
press in. So
Yeah.
Well, and at the end of the day, we're all going to let people influence us.
yes.
I mean, maybe not if you're really into isolation. For some, I know that is a struggle.
Yeah.
But if you're a social person like me, if you're not going to get plugged into a church group, guess where I'm going to get plugged in? With a group somewhere.
Yep.
You know, if you're an extroverted person, that's the struggle. And so are you going to get plugged
Yeah.
in, have close community with those who are not walking with God? Because I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, they're actually going to lead you astray eventually.
Yep.
It's
You
true.
know, that's that proverb that says, bad company corrupts good morals.
Yeah.
hey, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, you may
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
well, I have community, I have these friends, but they're not Christians, but we're really close. I would just say that's, cool that you have friends that you can love on
Right.
and share the gospel with, but you need strong Christian
Yep.
community in your
Absolutely.
life because they're going to influence you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. We're all being influenced by somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's for sure. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I've got one more thing to add on expectations.
Okay.
Because I think oftentimes people will want to learn from other people, whether from a mentor or from a friend. They want to learn from other people.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I can't find anyone, to mentor me or to pour into my life.
That's
And
the
I
first one you
think-
always hear.
I've heard it a lot.
So many
1,000
times. But I think you have to adjust your expectations and let people be people.
Yeah.
Like, people can only give who they are, and no one is your savior. That is Jesus.
Oh,
No one
good
can
point.
come in and walk beside you
That's
in
such a good
all
point.
of the areas that maybe you want to grow or you want to have your life impacted.
Yeah.
So that's why we need community,
Yeah.
because we need to have a whole variety of people. We need a team of people that are impacting us in a variety of ways.
Multiple mentors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Only Jesus is the perfect mentor who can impact us in all of the ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other than that, you've got this person who helps us be more kind. This person maybe helps me be more patient. This person's really great at organizing, taking meals to people. This person's really good at, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need the body of Christ.
Absolutely.
Well, I love that, Heather. And I think one of the other excuses that goes with that is people say, well, I don't know anyone, or I can't find anyone. It's actually not true. If they sat down and were honest with themselves, there's plenty of people
Right.
they could ask to be invested in their life, but there's
Yes.
no perfect person
Right.
that they can find. Like, we have this idea that I'm going to find my Moses and I'll be his Joshua.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't really
Well,
work
good
that
luck
way.
with that.
It takes actually a lot of work
Yeah.
Yeah.
to even be mentored by someone. It's
Yep.
time out of your
Yep.
your life that you need to go sit with them. It's time out of their life.
Yep.
You may have to drive because they,
Yep.
a lot of the people that are really quality, they're usually busy.
Really
Yeah.
busy.
You
yeah.
know, and
Yep.
you're gonna have to go out of your way to make space to be with them, meet them on their schedule.
Yep.
But if you can do that, chances are people who can do that. You may be surprised.
Yeah.
The kind of friendships you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
Right. But I think adjusting your expectations is wisdom.
I think so too.
If you elevate and say that person didn't have time for me, well, maybe they don't have as much time as you want.
Right.
But if they can give you any, you're still going to
Right.
benefit from that person versus cutting them off and saying, I'm not going to,
Yes.
look out, or I'm not going to press into that individual because they didn't meet my needs, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the first guys
Yeah.
who mentored me, I finally worked up the courage to say, hey, so-and-so, would you mentor me? And he just said, you know what? I talked to one of your other friends or something like that. He said, here's where I live, and our door's always open. So you're welcome just to come by.
Yeah.
That was
Wow.
it. I was in some
He
ways
put
I
it
was
back in your
disappointed.
court.
Put it back in my court.
Yep.
Like, I thought he would say, all right, let's start meeting for coffee 3 times a week. He didn't. He just rolled it back on my court. So what I did is I went with one of my friends who was going to his house.
Yeah.
and he was teaching a Bible study there.
Wow.
And I went a few times until I got to know them, and then I just started showing up at his house
Yeah.
all the time. And then
Yeah.
for years, it'd be like 6 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, man, I'm hungry, and I was single, and I needed food. And I called them.
Show
They'd
up
be
at
like,
his house.
I'd be like, hey, what are you guys up to tonight? They're like, we're just about to make dinner. You want to come over and eat? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm in the neighborhood or whatever, as I'm driving there.
Right.
And it was actually
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I actually like what he did because it's the adjust expectations.
Yep.
And it's you need to put in some effort into this. Like, how badly do you actually want to grow? You need to be real with
Yep.
yourself.
That's an interesting way to do it. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that is a really interesting way to do it. One other thing I've heard that can be really helpful is to, ask someone for 30 minutes for coffee. That way
Yeah.
you've got a time frame, and it's different than
You're
just
asking them for a specific investment rather than just an open-ended one.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes it can feel like, well, do you want me to commit for the next 20 years? Because I can't do
I
that.
can't do that.
Right,
But I'll give
I
you 30
could
minutes.
do 30 minutes for coffee.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe come up with one or two questions of like, hey, I'd like to know this from you. Would you have time to answer back on that? And that can really work, especially
Yeah.
as life is busier. And yeah.
Yep.
I know of one guy who was so desperate to want to grow and be mentored like that from the best people he could. He planned his family vacations around where there were, he was a businessman, famous people or well-known people or successful business leaders. And then he would call them like months ahead of time, plan a day with them and say, I'll give you $100 for 1 hour
Oh, wow.
if you'll
Wow.
meet me for coffee.
This
Yeah.
guy was serious.
He was serious.
Yeah.
And then it was a big deal. And he could only do it like once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And they would take their family vacation there and he would meet with those guys, give them the
Wow.
$100.
Yeah.
And it's paid huge dividends.
Oh, I
He's
bet.
wildly
I bet.
successful in the business world.
Wow.
Yeah.
But crazy. That's actually convicted me before.
Well,
Right.
that's a
Like,
guy that's
how serious
that's
are you?
intentional, but he's also rational. He's not expecting that some person to give them something for free. He says, "This is valuable. You can give
Yep.
me something, but I recognize that I need to give something back too." I like that.
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
he
Wow.
actually
Yeah.
found people, like one of them was that he ended up with in the end was John Wooden, the coach.
Oh yeah.
Actually mentored him for years.
Oh wow.
On the side, I think for
Wow.
free. So you just never know
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I'd say now we're talking about mentorship, which by the way is going to be one
It's
of our
part of
upcoming
community.
podcasts.
Are
a
we
couple
gonna talk
months from
about
now.
it?
We actually are. It's
Oh,
on
I
one of
like
our
it.
random
That's
topics.
good.
So
That's great.
this is a little
Yeah.
blip for you right there.
Little
Coming
blip.
again soon.
Yeah.
Get a mentor.
Yeah.
But for real, be an authentic community. Get some
Yeah.
mentors. Get in a Bible study. Get in a house church. Get in
I
a
just
small
want to
group.
say it in a little
Yeah.
different way. The reason I'm so excited about what's happening at ACF right now is this is not new.
Right.
But if we say it in a way that is fresh,
Yeah.
our world has been set up by COVID and the craziness of isolation and the
Yeah.
political polarization. I think there's a lot of people that are hungry for community,
I think so
Yeah.
that
too.
are hungry to get with other people and just
Yeah.
be with other human beings doing
Yeah.
life together. I think if we'd start talking about it at our jobs and our neighborhoods and just say, hey, at our church, we just believe in doing life together.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
think anybody should go through life alone. Those little
Yeah.
phrases
Yes.
could be easy for us to start a conversation where people go, whoa, I feel like I'm lonely. I'm isolated.
Yes.
I don't have anybody. Because even you said there's some non-believers that are coming to your house church. They're
Yeah.
welcome. Come on in. Do life with us. And then as they do life, they get to rub shoulders with Christians who
Yeah.
have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and it flows out. I think it's a great tool we can use,
Yeah.
not in a manipulative way, but in a winsome, attractive way to say, hey, you guys want to come? We're doing life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, join us.
No, I think that's really
Agreed.
good. And if there's someone in the church that you're wanting to learn from or grow from, find out where they're serving. Find out
Yeah.
where their house church is and say, hey,
hey, can I serve alongside
That's
you?
Yes.
actually great. Ask
That
them
is
Yes.
great.
what house
Yes.
church they go
Yeah.
to. Be those people, the clingy, creepy people
right,
who are like, hey,
stalk
where do you
them
live?
and
What house church do you go to?
Just kidding.
I'm
What
gonna
time
stalk
what time do you
you.
shop at Walmart? You know?
But finding out where they're already serving
Yeah.
and where you can come alongside as a help
Yeah.
may be the difference between it happening and not happening.
Well, yeah.
So,
Sad
Agreed.
but true. Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I do sometimes, as a leader and up front, people always want to be my friend.
Right.
And I go,
Right.
let me pick my own friends, but I'll tell you what I will do.
Yeah.
I'll do life with you.
Yes.
I'll do life with as many as I can be around. I can't
Yes.
be friends with everyone.
Yes.
But I can do life with a lot of people as we
Yes.
just, minister together, serve together, have fun together. But if you want to be my closest buddy, listen, that kind of gives me the creeps a little
Yeah.
bit. I would just say that. I don't know if anybody's
I
listening.
like that, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do life with people, but I get to pick my friends.
I get to pick my
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't have to love everybody. I don't have to like everybody. I do have to
Yeah.
love everybody, but I don't have to like them.
It's true.
I have the freedom to pick who I like to be around.
Yeah.
When I was in junior high,
Yeah.
one of the rules for camps, this is when I was a junior high kid, was you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose.
But you can't pick your friend's nose.
But you can't pick
I
your
was a
friend's
junior
nose.
high pastor too, buddy. I remember that
That's what
one.
they used to tell me when I was
love
just
it,
a kid.
though.
That was one of the rules at the
Yeah,
camps.
you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your
But
friend's
you
nose.
can't pick your friend's nose.
This
Hey, maybe your house church is
podcast
that
is
close, though.
devolving, man. This is devolving.
I apologize. Hey, we'll throw you guys a couple plugs before we end. If you
Yeah.
did not get a chance yet to listen to the testimony of Buddy Grove, we highly recommend it. You need to go back on our archive, listen to that testimony. Powerful, powerful story.
Yeah.
The reason I throw that plug right now is we're actually lining up another testimony with a woman, and she wants to talk about her story coming out of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And into the grace of God. We're talking about legalism to grace.
Oh, that'd
and
be a
Heather and I are
wonderful
going to draw
story.
straws to see who gets to interview.
Hey, that's great.
But super excited. You don't want to miss these testimonies when they come out. I think
Yeah.
it can easily be like, oh, maybe I won't watch those. Maybe they're not as informational. But I have to say, the testimonies are
Yeah.
some of the most powerful ones.
Yeah.
Because you hear the story of how God radically touched
Yes.
someone's life and changed it.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
I know I'm going to date myself
Yeah.
with this, but I was telling my wife, I said, I wish I could watch more of those podcasts. And she said, well, why don't you just listen to them? I go, oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. Just download it and listen to it while I drive or while I'm working in the yard or doing
Maybe
whatever.
you too have been
I
in
mean,
that situation.
You know, maybe
and
you said, I don't have time to sit down and watch that podcast. Well, you
Right.
can always listen to
you
it.
can
That
always
changed
listen to the
everything.
podcast. We have them on audio.
That's like a
or
duh
video. Yeah. So just so people know, you can find it on the podcast app on your iPhone. If you have an iPhone, you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on YouTube, and you can also find it on Facebook. And there's probably one other spot that I'm forgetting. You can find it our website and our app, actually.
Wow.
You can find it as well. So you can listen to these podcasts wherever you are,
Yep.
whatever platform you're using.
Yeah.
It is available and accessible
Yep.
to you.
A lot of fun, you
Very
guys.
good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all the time we got today. But God bless you guys. Thank you so much for
Thanks, Al.
joining
See
us
you
on
next time.
Verified, and we can't wait to catch you again.
We hope this topic inspired you in your adventure with the Lord. Stay tuned each week for a new podcast. And if you want to support us, not only can you subscribe to our podcast, but you can also spread the word with other friends or family. Maybe it would also be a blessing to them. Well, until next time, may the Lord bless you.